Anita here, and this is week 22 of the 52-week illustration challenge. We're almost halfway there. I've just realized that in just a few weeks will be half a year mark. I can't believe it's going, well, maybe not this fast, but it's already been half a year, almost. It's crazy. It's a crazy thought. But for now, it's still week 22, and the theme for this week was actually science. And I don't really have much to do with science, with even science fiction, the technology in general, actually. The theme of my pictures usually revolves around fantasy things or fairy tales. So the first thing that popped in my mind was actually steampunk. And if you don't know what steampunk is, well, you should Google it, because I am by no means an expert. I have a lot of different things that are attractive to me. Steampunk is one of them. The most easiest way I could describe it is as if it's a kind of like an alternative future to the Victorian times, where the steam power is widely used. So yeah, I was attracted to it for a very long time. I mean, ever since I believe the Golden Compass. I really like the Victorian slash kind of like weird machinery designs that you can see in the steampunk community. I would literally die of happiness if I ever tried on some of those amazing clothes that you can see on the internet. It's absolutely amazing, and I'm really attracted to that kind of designs and that kind of aesthetic. And so for this thing, when I was thinking science, that was just like the first thing that popped in my head. And so I thought about making some kind of a steampunk scientist. And since I'm not that into the topic, I just had this little sketch laying in one of my sketchbooks. It was of this little girl peeking over a shelf or a table, something, and she was looking at a whole like variety of different preserves. And that idea was just scrapped. It was for something different a long time ago, but I really liked that concept, and so I've used it here. I just changed a few things, added plenty of things, changed the background, and so we have a little scientist here who is looking at a variety of jars filled with a very, very glowing green liquid. And it was fun making it. It's a very simple concept, but because I tend to make pictures with so much detail in them, it was actually quite a different experience drawing something like this, because I was really unhappy with how little detail there was. And so I was trying through the whole picture to add more detail through different patterns and textures. And even here, when I'm adding this flat color, on purpose, I'm leaving it a little bit more wet so that it creates that blooming texture that watercolor does, which I absolutely hate normally. But in this case, it made sense to me just because it was a wall, because I wanted to create that dark background, very cool night-looking background, as if she was in a cellar or some kind of lab. And then the front is illuminated kind of by her light, and then there is more of that glow from the jars on the table. So as you can see here, I had a little bit of a problem with creating those flat surfaces, not only because I wanted texture, but mostly because it was really, really warm that day. And that's why I'm actually putting in the color in smaller sections so that I had more control over how flat my washes were. So instead of one big wash over the whole background like I would normally do, I did them in smaller sections, and that also helped me to see where I was supposed to draw, because I draw my sketches, the line arts, with blue pencil, which absolutely disappears under darker bluish colors. You can't see any of it. So by creating those sections, I could still see where I was drawing. And so the background is quite simple, but very time consuming. Here I'm creating some like a night scene So there is just a simple blue, Prussian blue, I believe, layer that I put on top of that grayish blue that I prepared for the whole background. And the reason for that was that I really wanted that background to be very dull, very dark. And I knew that every color I would put on top of that would be also dull. That's why I left on purpose the moon and the beam so bright and yellow, because those for me were focal points. And I still am not exactly happy with how that beam of light coming from the little lamp that she has attached to her headgear, I'm not exactly happy with how it's pointing. I think I should, because it's pointing outside of the picture, and that immediately kind of guides your eye towards the outside of the picture. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. Just for me personally, I need to have something on the opposite side to create balance. And the idea for that was that moon would create balance, but still feel it's not enough. In the end, of course, I really like the effect. I don't have a problem, but with that, I really feel I have to justify my thoughts to you guys. I'm not hating on myself at all. I'm just simply trying to figure out the best composition for my idea to go through, like, to, reach you guys. And so I really like the idea of the beam. It's just that it's so bright, it's immediately guiding your eye towards it. And so I was still hoping, because the focal point were supposed to be the jars. So for now, they still look very dull. But in the end, they stand out much more. It's just a matter of arranging the background and adjusting the colors so that they guide your eye where you want it to go, kind of, So the background, as I said, is really simple. As you can see, I'm putting just flat colors everywhere. I've put a layer of very dark brown to create that frame, that window frame. And then I'm using different shades of brown, gray, blue, and the mixes of those colors to create stones of different sizes and shapes. I'm trying to space them so that they are interesting to the eye. So they're also balanced, there's not too much color in one place. And that's about it. It's just a lot of fiddling, It's not really anything that special in the background. But that was also one of my ideas, that the background had to be really simple. Because initially I wanted to make the background really pop as well. But I felt that actually making a little bit more dull, it created a little bit more of a real background instead of a element of the picture. I mean, it's supposed to enhance the foreground and not just take away from it. And so it's still really good. I really like that background. The first idea I had was to use some of the dark soft pastel in the corners to darken it, to create the idea that it's really, really dark in that room. But once I finished the whole background, I didn't feel the need to use that at all. And that's why I just left it the way it was. And I was really proud of myself because I think it's one of those good results from going through the 30-day sketchbook challenge. If this is your first video, I've just finished the 30-day sketchbook challenge. You can find the whole playlist on my channel. And I think one of those very good results of it was that I finally stopped overdoing things, like over-adding, is that even a word? I was actually satisfied for the first time in a long time with my painting. I was like, okay, this is actually enough. I don't need to add it. I could, but I don't have to. While before, I had the feeling like, oh, I can still add this, so I should add this because I can add it, so why shouldn't I? But in this case, I was absolutely fine with just leaving it the way it was, because my picture didn't gain anything from me adding so much things on top. It still had the same effect, even if I did not spend extra time adding extra details. So I'm very happy with myself. And here's another tiny experiment. I really wanted to make a different kind of design or different production of this beam of light effect that I'm doing here. And the reason for that is that normally I would just do a normal background and paint on top of that with, for example, washed down or diluted gouache to create that milky film and create a beam of light from that. But it would be white, and even if I added yellow, it wouldn't have that really poppy, really bright effect that I wanted. And so this is one of probably the very first times in a long while when I'm actually planning beforehand how I'm going to execute an idea. And so I left on purpose a part of the background, and I drew in those bricks with a different set of colors. I was really proud of myself. So here I'm adding tiny details again. I really didn't want to over fiddle with this one, and so what I'm doing is I'm covering it with a darker color, like a wider line of a darker color, and on top of that darker color I'm coming back with a lighter color, just a little thinner, so that you have like a kind of 3D effect, and it's really easy to draw. It's just flat colors on top of each other, but it creates a really nice effect. Now here I'm doing something that was just a waste of time. I knew it wouldn't work, and yet I did it anyway because I was stubborn. Now, initially the idea here is that the jars reflect light on top of the table. So what I should have done is I actually should have put the green first and fill in the rest of the table with brown. However, I was lazy, and so I did the opposite. I filled in the whole thing with brown and hoped that, on top of that green would show, which of course, naturally it wouldn't. Now, it wasn't a very big deal because I knew that I could just fix that with colored pencil. And yeah, it still looks very good, but sometimes I want to challenge myself and do something with just one medium. Just for myself, so I know I can. And that's like gradients done like that between two colors that are so different, are so fiddly, and they create so much work. I don't know, sometimes I just don't feel like doing them. Same idea over here. All those elements are made of copper, so they're metal. And initially I planned to do them and kind of like render basically a metal with watercolor. And I was dreading that because it's so boring and it takes so much time and it's so much fiddling again. And then I realized that I don't really like that to start with. And then I realized that it wouldn't even fit with my style because when I was coloring this, do you see any shading? I don't shade. I literally don't shade. I just put in flat colors, gradients, and lines. And so if I all of a sudden over-rendered some metal, and I'm like 50% of me now knows that that's out of being lazy. I don't want to spend the time to fiddle with, rendering the metal in watercolor. But on the other hand, I am absolutely sure that if I did that, I wouldn't be happy because it would just look like it wasn't part of the picture. Just because everything else is not in the same. I mean, even with the bottles, I just don't make them like realistic or semi-realistic. I just, do them the way I want to do them. But I always feel so guilty about that, It's just such a weird feeling. Like, you feel like there's a set of rules that you have to follow as a watercolor artist or just artist in general. Like they tell you have to draw things a certain way, and I don't know, I'm a rebel. But in this case, I just did a little bit of shading with just a darker color, and I was planning to go back with some white details on top just to create a nice shine, but I don't think I've done that in the end, just because once I've added the lines to the top of that flashlight, it just wasn't necessary anymore, and it was perfectly fine without any extra white added. There was enough shine. Another thing that I was really stuck on, to be honest, was the color of the girl's hair. And also because this is just it's not exactly a girl, it's not a boy, there is no I think about her as a girl and I presume she is a girl, but, just because her top of her head is showing, and because only half of her face is shown, and I'm not even drawing any like feminine features like eyelashes or whatever. It's very hard to say if it's a boy or a girl. The only reason I assume it's a girl is because I don't tend to draw guys in my sketches, and so I don't think that it's a guy. But nonetheless, it was very hard to choose the colors for that character, because naturally I just wanted to have orange hair. That was something that somehow I really, really wanted. I thought that, a steampunk character like this one should have a really crazy hairdo. But on the other hand, I already used a bunch of orange for the copper, so it would disappear and all that. And I wanted to have a color that was really, making everything stand out and looking quirky and crazy. And that's why I've added the pink. And I'm really happy. It was an amazing idea. So here I'm adding the white details. One of the differences from the pictures recently is that I'm starting to work on my backgrounds in like bits. So I will work, for example, on one part first, finish it, and then move to the other. And that's something completely opposite to what I've been doing until now. Because I was working on my pictures in sort of layers. I would put a layer of watercolor first on everything, and I would put layer on something else, layer of shading and stuff like that. Now, the reason why I've done that in the past is because it was easier for me to keep everything even, so that I wouldn't kind of get myself into a corner when one of the pieces was overworked, and then I had to match everything to that one piece and work for who knows how long. But so that's why I've done it in layers. But now I think it's because I'm gaining the confidence and getting really feeling good in my own style of painting, is that I know how far I can go, because I've painted so many, illustrations now with that style, that I know how far I will probably go. And I can work on one piece at a time, so I can finish the background and work on the character. And it's a really, really nice... it's nice. I'm not complaining here. It's kind of a different way of working. And it's refreshing. It's mostly refreshing. I don't really like routine, so it's refreshing. And the eyes here, I was actually really confused whether or not I wanted them to be nicely shaded. I didn't know what color I wanted them to be to begin with. And it was really hard to actually get an idea on what I wanted to do, because one of the things I felt that I needed to do in this picture was, the jars are glowing, the light is glowing, so there's a lot of reflected light on the objects everywhere, but I just didn't want to deal with that. I know I'm so lazy, and so I was like, I don't mind. But in the back of my head, there was a voice constantly telling me, you shouldn't be, doing it like this. You should be adding a glow of, a reflected glow on this side and something else here, and what shadows should I use that will fit in here? And I was like, I don't want to. I don't want to do that. It's a really, really annoying thing to be feeling when you just want to paint. Just thinking, I'm not saying it's wrong, because of course you have to think about the rules of painting for certain things. It just helps to make them look, how the way they do in reality. And but on the other hand, I don't know, I'm in a rebellious phase, I suppose. And I was really tired at that time as well, because again, I was painting till late in the night. And I was having problems putting a flat washes on those tiny little bubbles. And you know that I am really tired if I can't even put a flat wash on a tiny little bubble. And so I was really just trying to skip as many steps as I could just to finish this painting. And here I've done a milky film that I was talking before, but it works perfectly for glass. Oh, now my camera is going crazy. Oh, But that's a really cool effect if you want to create a quick glass, and that's exactly the same way I would create the light beam before. Just painting the background in exactly the same colors as everywhere else, and then adding a white milky film of the washed, the diluted glass, gouache. And yeah, but it's perfect for glass like this. Just in this case, I wanted something more sparkly for the light beam. So here I'm trying to fix the bits on the table and add some glow. And I'm using the Polychromos I've received in a package recently. Once again, thank you for the package. And they are really cool. They're like something in between the normal Derwent pencils that I use and Prismacolors. There's so many different names starting with P, I just can't keep up with them. And they're really nice and soft, and I like them much more than I like Prismacolors, to be honest. So yeah, definitely a fan of these so far. They really layered nicely and created that glow I wanted. And I'm using two colors, just a green and some yellow that I had laying around. Nothing really special, just a layer of color. And then I'm adding some of wood grain just around. Once again, I wanted to skip it, but just there are some things that even if you're tired, you're going to finish. And I'm really happy that I've added it because, like I've said, it was bothering me that such a simple picture didn't have enough detail. So that's why I'm adding the pattern simply anywhere I can. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this picture. Just adding depth in the patterns. It's really crazy how much time a simple picture like that can take to finish. But that's pretty much it, guys. This is the painting. I'm extremely happy with it. I know I critique my pictures a lot, and I'm sorry if that bothers you, but it helps me to grow, so there's nothing, there's no viciousness behind it. I just really like to analyze the way I paint to just make it better for next time. And I really, really love the brightness in this picture. I've achieved everything I wanted. So if you would like to see this painting in the full version, go to my Facebook page. The link is in the description. And I will see you guys next time. Bye!